confusing this is. It's a lot. When you get your blue book in the mail, I know I flip through it and I'm like, what does it all mean? So today our hope is that we can help you navigate that a little bit better. To help us do that, we have our favorite moderator. Don't tell Ryan Alty I said that, Jen. Our favorite moderator has returned to guide our journey through the ballot today. Before arriving in Colorado, Jim Seidlecki spent nearly 20 years working as a journalist and managing newsrooms. After 5 years as the Director of Communications for Adams County, Jim recently moved into the role of Deputy County Manager. Jim and his wife, Kim, live in Thornton with their 3 children. Please join me in welcoming Jim.
Well, good morning. It is great to be back in front of folks again, right? It's nice to be in rooms with people and doing this without a Zoom. I did a couple of these, if you'll recall, while we were in Zoom, but I was in basketball shorts, so had to put on a pair of slacks today. And in case you're curious, the difference between a good haircut and a bad haircut is about a week. At least that's what I've been told, so we're hoping. So we are going to cover 3 ballot questions this morning that are certainly going to have a local impact or possible impact on the business community at large. We will be hearing about Proposition 119, Proposition 120, and the updates to the city charter. Each campaign is going to receive 5 minutes for the proponents and the opponents to present on those ballot questions. Additionally, we will be hearing from all of the candidates running for the Jefferson County Board of Education, so we have a very packed agenda for you this morning. Now, this audience, one of the things that's very appealing to come back and visit with everyone is the fact that it is the utmost respect for presenters, candidates. There's an atmosphere of civility that exists here in Arvada that doesn't necessarily exist nationwide, and we're really excited about that. We want to keep that going with the campaign the Arvada Chamber has recently launched. So you'll see it on your table there in front of you. Each of the presenters and candidates who have joined us have made the commitment to put themselves out there. We know that they're passionate about their positions, and we've asked that everyone in the audience maintain a level of respect for each other throughout the process and adhere to the civility pledge that you find on your tables. And there's some pens there as well. So as an audience member, we ask you to be respectful of the candidates and their perspectives. And we would invite all of our attendees today to take that civility pledge, which you find there with a pen on your table. So let's get started this morning with the ballot questions first. For the city charter revision, we'll go easy because Mr. McGough, there is no opponent, but you get the microphone first. So for ballot questions 3C, 3D, 3E, and 3F, the proponent is Mark McGough.
Do you have his
And Katie Winter.
I didn't know Katie was coming, but we're grateful to have you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We have mics over there. You bet. Pause.
Probably because Tammy didn't want me to have a mic in my hand.
It's true.
Hi everyone, good morning fellow Arvadans, friends and strangers I haven't met yet. My name is Katie Winter. I'm a parent. I'm here in Jefferson County and a member of the Arvada Chamber of Commerce. Today Mark McGough and I are going to talk to you about a few of the things you might see on your ballot if you live here in Arvada with respect to our charter changes. And I'm going to tell Ryan to go to the next slide. Mark, do you want to say good morning to our friends quickly first?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for being here, and a special thanks to those who are in the audience who also served on the Charter Review Committee. Thank you for being here.
So Arvada has the unique position of being one of the only cities that we know of that performs a comprehensive review of the city charter every 10 years. It's written into our charter to perform a review by the citizens from the community. So this past January, 20 members of the Arvada community were appointed by our city council to take a look to see if our city charter has evolved to meet the needs of the community. What we have decided, what we did after we thoroughly reviewed it for about 4 months between January through April, we submitted to the council for their consideration 11 different changes. And what was decided is to put 4 changes for the consideration of voters this November. We cannot change the charter without your approval and your vote. Let's see those beautiful ballot issues, Ryan. So ballot question 3C, it asks to remove a prohibition that does not allow a person who works for another city to run for or be elected to the city council. Let's just say that one more time. If you work for another city You cannot run for city council or serve on city council. Now, of course, it makes sense. You can't work for the city of Arvada and be on city council at the same time, right? That's very, very simple. But you need to think about this. You can still work for the state of Colorado. You can still work for the federal government. You can work for the county. You can work for a fire protection district or a parks and recreation district, but you can't work for another city like Denver or Lakewood. I don't know why, because I wasn't around in 1963 when the charter was written, but there is a local legend circulating that perhaps this was written with the specific intent to exclude a person. That at the time in 1963 there was a person that fit this exact description, and that the writers of the charter put this in with intention to make sure that person could not be elected and could not serve. I don't know if that's true or not, but Lorraine Anderson, when she gets back from vacation in Arizona, might be able to add some color to that. But I really want our voters to think about this and think about why it excludes a person, and is that fair and just? And should the voters be the ones that really decide who can be elected to our city council? The next one, ballot question 3D, will increase the time for filling a vacancy on the Arvada City Council. Now, recently we had this happen when Rachel Zenzinger came off our city council and went to our state legislature. And the council had exactly 30 days from the moment that happened to tell the community, put out the application, allow people to apply, review the applications, select applicants, interview applicants, and make a final selection. We've heard feedback that said we'd like a little bit more time. And we think on the Charter Review Commission that that was a reasonable request and are asking our voters to consider that. Mark, would you like to walk us through the last two about initiative and referendum procedures?
Thanks, Katie. Yes, an initiative is, for example, if there's a request to the city council to create and pass an ordinance, and the city council should decide not to do that. Take an example like marijuana within the community. The city council passed on the opportunity to do that. If people had chosen, they could have initiated an ordinance to do that. That requires a certain number of, or percentage of signatures, percentage of those who voted in the last election. In the past, and current charter says you only have 30 days to collect those signatures. Now, if this should pass, the people initiating an ordinance would have 60 days to get the required signatures. So it just, given the fact that the population of the city has increased greatly, the number of signatures increases, the necessary signatures increases accordingly, it just seems reasonable that there's additional time to collect the signatures. And it's almost the same with the referendum. Suppose the city council passes an ordinance that the citizens don't like, or a certain group of citizens don't like, and want to place it on the ballot. Now they would have 60 days rather than just 30 days to collect the required signatures to put that issue on the ballot. So that if marijuana again, if the council had passed an ordinance on marijuana and there was a vocal opposition to it and people wanted to overturn that by referendum, they would have 60 days to collect the signatures rather than 30. So we just think that's a reasonable kind of thing. And I should mention, by the way, we have a great charter. It's very small. It's in this little booklet, 37 pages, not tightly spaced, and it would be half that size if it were laid out differently. Most of the issues for the city have been decided. These are not major issues. They're not make or break for the city, but they will help us to have a more efficient, more responsive government if these four are passed. So we recommend and urge you to say yes to each of these four ballot initiatives.
Of course, and always, we have a website that has more information. And Mark McGough has published his home phone number and his email address. He's accepting love letters, notes, and other kind comments, as well as questions.
And $50 bill.
Of course.
So that if you have any questions or comments or wants additional feedback, please reach out to Mr. McGough and check out our website at arvadacharter.com. Thank you so much for the time to talk with you all today. Your vote is your voice, and I'm really excited to see how this turns out at the ballot box this November. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Mark. I'll have a double of whatever Katie had this morning. Next up is Proposition 119. This is the creation of out-of-school education program and marijuana sales tax increase initiative. 10 minutes to each here. Our proponent this morning, Speaker of the House, Casey Becker. Five minutes each, are we doing?
Yeah, five.
Five, total of 10.
Total of 10. You're good.
If you'd like to, by all means.
Hi, everyone. Did that, can you hear me? Now, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Casey Becker. I am no longer. Woo! Okay. How's that?
You're good.
Hi, everyone. My name's Casey Becker. I'm the former Colorado Speaker of the House. I ended my last term in January. I live up the road in Boulder. It's great to be here. I have been off the public speaking circuit for a little bit for the last 9 months, but it's good to be here today to talk about Proposition 119. Simply put, Prop 119 is a 5% tax on consumers who use marijuana products to fund out-of-school learning opportunities for kids ages 5 to 17. It prioritizes the lowest income kids in Colorado, which it's defined as 100% and below the federal poverty line, which is families that make $26,000 or less. And it gives them up to $1,500 a year to use on out-of-school learning opportunities. That can be tutoring, that can be music lessons, that can be the chess club that's held at school after school. It could be sports camps and anything like that, career and technical training. So why do this? Well, we know that there's a persistent opportunity gap in Colorado. I'm supporting this measure because my 5th and 8th graders frankly have opportunities that a lot of kids in Colorado don't have. I pay for a tutor for them. I pay for them to go to chess club after school, to take music lessons after school. I just signed them up for a climbing team in Boulder, and to participate in that, it's about $5,000 per kid per year. It's a lot of money. And those opportunities are important to all of our kids because learning doesn't end at 3 o'clock every day. If you want to have the opportunities to participate in all the club sports or get private tutoring or music lessons like my kids do, you have to have a lot of money to support that. I think we pay $60 a week for private tutoring for my kid. So how do we help those kids when our school funding is itself difficult, but there's more that we can do to help children. Now, why not just take a 5% tax on marijuana and put it into K-12 education? And I think that there's a really important reason for that. I don't ever want my kids' funding for schools tied to people smoking pot. We made a conscious decision not to do that years ago. That's been consistent at the legislature, and I hope continues to be the case. Currently, marijuana tax dollars are used for school construction, building new buildings primarily in rural areas, fixing school buildings, but not for education. So this is not money that anyone ever, the school community has ever wanted to see go to fund core K through 12 programs. This is not intended to address what I see as a funding shortfall in our K-12 program. I hope legislators and the public continue to work on that issue. But in the meantime, we can do something for kids with all the other opportunities that continue to exacerbate the opportunity gap in Colorado. So it'll essentially be about $150 million a year that'll be administered by a 9-member governor-appointed Type 1 board in Colorado. A Type 1 board, there are dozens of them,
and they are subject to open meeting laws, subject to notice and comment, a public opportunity to engage, and they will certify out-of-school learning opportunities, programs, organizations, entities that provide out-of-school learning. And then if a kid enrolls in it and applies for the funding, that funding will go to that education program. Does that mean I can't even see that far?
30, you're okay, 30 seconds.
Okay. We'd love to have your support. I know that there are folks saying, this is not where we should be focusing our effort. We should be focusing our effort on K-12. I'd like to see that happen as well, but I don't think that should preclude working on other things. I think folks are worried about, is it going to be focused on low-income kids? 100%, it's explicit in the language. And then another concern I've heard is this a voucher? A voucher is something that takes public funds and uses that money for private school tuition. This is not, it's explicit in the blank ballot language, and you can see it in your blue book. It is not a voucher, not now, not ever. So if you want to help more kids have opportunities to participate in out of school and after school programs, we'd love to have your support.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Casey. We have the proponent then. The opponent is Evie Hudak as an advocate representing public education policy. Evie, would you like to sit or stand? Come on over here. Great.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Nice to see you all. I haven't seen you in a while. So I'm representing Advocates for Public Education Policy, and we, along with the Association of School Boards, the Association of School Executives, and a whole bunch of other education-related groups, as well as the Denver Post, oppose Proposition 119. We believe that this proposal is unconstitutional and unnecessary. It's unconstitutional because part of the money that people don't talk about is coming from school trust lands. And the money generated by school trust lands is constitutionally required to go only to public schools. But this diverts $21 million per year from school trust lands into this private new bureaucracy created by LEAP, the Learning, Enrichment, and Academic Progress Program. It does not go to public schools. And also, it is a quasi-voucher because the public funds generated by this initiative would be allowed to be used for private school students and homeschool students, which public funding does not go to at this time and has already been considered unconstitutional. This is unnecessary because Colorado already received $510 million of coronavirus relief funds to go to public schools to use as they see fit to help students recover from the so-called learning loss. And in addition, our legislature passed 4 bills with funding dedicated to this. We don't need to establish a private bureaucracy with a budget bigger than the Department of Education to administer some small out-of-school programs when we already have a lot of public money. And we don't have enough public money for public education. You know that we've had the budget stabilization factor or the negative factor for the last decade, which has underfunded our schools by $9 billion. And even though I agree that we shouldn't use pot money for funding public education, if the voters really wanted another $150 million, they should give it to our public schools so that our teachers could provide the kinds of programs for enrichment that this initiative is proposing. This initiative is very misleading. As the Denver Post pointed out in their editorial yesterday, it doesn't actually identify the tutoring programs that would receive the money. it could go to anybody that this board decided to send it to. And the initiative says that the board and the providers are not suable. They cannot, there can be no lawsuit against them. So if they discriminate or if they do wrong, too bad. Our public money is going to continue to fund them. So the Post points out that this leaves the door open for unscrupulous private providers to pounce on this opportunity to obtain public funds and do little in the way of educational attainment. There is no guarantee that these programs are going to truly be learning and academic progress enrichment. Finally, it strips money away through diverting the money from the school trust lands, which I already mentioned is unconstitutional. It diverts that money from public school funding. That money would have gone into school finance, so it's actually reducing school finance, and that makes the situation worse. So as the Post said, it's a gamble we encourage voters not to make.
Thank you, Evie. Okay, so I'm going to brag for just a second. In Adams County, what we've done with our marijuana money, we have a 3% tax on 3 stores in unincorporated Adams County. We had a moratorium in place the first year that the law was enacted, so in 2015 we pushed this through. Our Board of County Commissioners said only if it's for educational purposes. And then we have a county manager who Mark knows very well, Ray Gonzalez, who seems to have the deepest Rolodex on earth. And so he makes some phone calls, and we paired with the Colorado Opportunity Scholarship Fund. So we have created the Adams County Scholarship Fund, and we send kids from the free and reduced lunch program who are high performers to college with 4-year scholarships, usually between $20,000 and $25,000. So it has been pretty amazing. I will say, if you're going to do it, education's definitely a great idea. So Proposition 120, reduce property tax rates and retain $25 million in Tabor surplus revenue initiative. Michael Fields is with us. It wouldn't be an event, Michael, if we didn't have you here. Thank you so much for coming. We'll give you about 5 minutes to talk about this initiative.
To be back here in Jefferson County, I think Jefferson County does 2 things really well. One is they vote, right? The numbers of people who vote in Jefferson County, huge compared to other places. You also have more forums, more debates, more of these types of events, which I think is great, informing people, getting the word out. So it's good to be back here in Arvada, and good to talk about Proposition 120, which is a very fascinating one this year. If you've read your blue book or read articles on it, you'll see how complex this is this year. But I want to talk about why we decided to bring this measure as written, and then talk about what the legislature is doing in order to try to thwart it. But first, all of you in here probably had seen earlier this year, assessments went out, right? How much is your property worth? And it skyrocketed. It skyrocketed all across the Front Range. I don't know exactly what your number might have been, but you're talking double digits, 15, 17% in some cases. And you think about that, you could have a house that you've been in, and 6 years later it's doubled in value, which sounds great if you're gonna sell it and move to Kansas. If you wanna stay in that house, you have to pay more in property taxes every year. And looking at who that hurts the most, seniors, people that are on fixed income, you think about people that are just living paycheck to paycheck, families that are dealing with this, that skyrocketing property tax has a big impact on their lives. You also think about people that rent, right? If the property owner has to pay more in property taxes, that gets passed on to you as a renter. But also thinking about being, at the chamber, what the impact it has on businesses. We have, our current system here in Colorado is the property tax is twice as high as it is in Utah. It's 3 times as high as Wyoming, right? So thinking about how do we address that? And so what we said is we want to do a 9% across the board cut. Knowing these increases are going up double digits, we wanted to make it a 9% cut. We're right off of the Gallagher repeal and the impact that will have on individuals, on families, on businesses too. And so you look at all of those things added up and said, this is a good time. We have government has more money than ever right now. If you look at our state budget, we are over the Tabor cap by over $1 billion per year right now. That means revenue has bounced back. Local revenue has bounced back similarly. And then we have all the stimulus money that's come in, right? $12 billion has gone to state and local governments through stimulus money, and that is something they can use for the next couple of years. $2.5 billion more into our education system, which are ready. And then I'll give the governor credit for this. He makes sure there's, in the legislature, putting investment, more money into education. This is on top of that money too. And so this is a good time to give families, to give small businesses a break. Well, the legislature, of course, didn't like this proposal and said, you know what, the day after the Supreme Court approves our ballot language, approves our title, they came up with a bill that comes up and thwarts this from even being able to be voted on in the way that we have it on the ballot. And so what they said was, you know, we're going to give a temporary, small tax cut. But the real big thing was moving definitions, changing definitions, so that they believe that this will not apply. That you can't, they said, we have a moral obligation to intervene. And think about that, the moral obligation is to not let voters actually vote on this. And so this is what they passed. They said, we don't trust voters enough to even make this decision, which is very dangerous in that we have a citizens initiative process, right? You could go and say, I have a great idea, I want to change the law, and go get 125,000 people to sign your petition, and it goes on the ballot, right? We create laws, the legislature can create laws too at the same time. Well, they're saying, we're going to come in and not allow that process to move on. So you can agree or disagree with a property tax cut, but what if it's your initiative that you want to do, and they say, you know what, we're going to rewrite it, we're going to change it, we're not going to let people vote on it. Very dangerous thing. And so what we're going to do is, if we pass this, we're going to go and challenge it in court and have the court system come up with the outcome and say, you know what, if you have conflicting laws, right, they pass something, we pass something, we believe the second bill is what passed. And this has never been done before, and I think it just sets a dangerous precedent. And so what we want to do is pass this, think it's a good idea, but we also think this is only a first step, right? You think about our property tax system, there are several problems. One is the commercial rate is too high still. We need to lower it. Second thing, we need to cap how much property taxes can go up. They can't go up 15% a year, right? More realistic to say 5%, right? And then third, we need a regional approach. This stuff impacts, we have a statewide assessment rate, which makes no sense to me, right? Because if you look at the western slope, the eastern plains, values don't rise the same way that they do here in the metro area. So they shouldn't have to cut services, you know, if we have a statewide assessment rate drop, and we shouldn't have to pay 15 or 17% more per year, right? So we have a system where somebody loses out in this process. So I think we should have a regional approach. I think the legislature, which is, been brought up before, they haven't moved on it, but somebody gets hurt in our current system. And so I think this is the first step. I think that you should vote for 120. It's a good move right now to help make sure that people aren't taxed out of their homes, that they you know, aren't paying too much in property taxes. But we have to have an ongoing discussion about our system, and I hope the legislature does that. So thanks for your time.
Michael, thank you so much. Michael says we should vote for this. There are two groups who formally say we should not. We are going to put their statement up on the board. They did not respond to our request to join us this morning, so if we can put their slide up on the board, give everyone a chance to read through their thoughts, and then we'll continue with the program. If you didn't bring your reading glasses, I will read it for you. Permanently reducing property tax revenue to local governments may result in cuts to important government services. Proposition 120 will pose challenges for special districts, cities, or counties that rely on property tax revenue from multifamily homes or lodging properties to maintain services such as water, transportation, education, and emergency services. In particular, critical fire protection needs are increasing rapidly, and not all areas of the state are able to generate the funding needed to support these local services. So that's the opposition statement. You can find that online or in the Blue Book as well for Proposition 120. Next up, we have our Board of Education candidates this morning. We're hearing from all candidates from the Board of Education, election in Districts 1, 2, and 5. We certainly recognize the importance of our education system on our communities and our future workforce, and we are grateful for the opportunity to hear from each of these candidates this morning. We'll start the discussion with 3 minutes worth of opening remarks for each candidate by district, and then we'll continue with Q&A in an effort to streamline our process. On stage, a chamber staff member will randomly drew and assigned questions for this morning prior to the forum. I will read those to the candidates, and each candidate received a list of questions yesterday, but they do not know which ones they are going to receive here this morning. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer the question. So candidates, you're going to be invited up for opening remarks in alphabetical order by last name. You will see a sign held up when you approach 30 seconds. That's going to be at this table right in front, held up by Cammie. And then we'll let you know when your time is up and you need to stop. So let's begin with District 1 and the opening remarks. 3 minutes each from Danielle Varda.
As a V, I didn't expect to go first.
Right, because with V, I guess you would have come last in elementary school a lot when we did this.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. I'm Dr. Danielle Varda. I'm running for District 1 School Board. I've devoted my whole life to public service, and I'm ready to do that now, and focused on kids teaching and learning in the district. And I believe that I have the leadership skills and experience to serve on the Jeffco School Board. I am the mother of 3 girls in Jefferson County. I have a 2nd grader and 4th grader at Weber Elementary and a 7th grader at Moore Middle School. And their dad's a teacher at Arvada High, so I have a lot at stake at what's going on in the district and want to be a part of that. I'm a regular volunteer in the classroom, and I've just begun my 4th year as Weber's School Accountability Committee Chair, and I've lived in the district for 16 years. After getting my PhD in 2008, I went on to become a policy scientist at the RAND Corporation, where I was able to begin my career as a data scientist and technologist focused on networks and collaboration and community. I'm now a professor at the University of Colorado, Denver in the School of Public Affairs, where I just started my 15th year as a tenured professor. I teach in our nonprofit concentration. I'm the director of that concentration. I teach collaborating across sectors in the spring, and evidence-based decision-making in the fall, my class right now, which are all skills that my students bring to their public service and I hope to bring to mine. I also am the CEO and founder of a $2 million in revenue health startup company located here in Arvada. This company has allowed me to take my research on strengthening social connectedness for kids and families and turn that into technology innovations in mental and behavioral health. We just hired our 20th employee, and I'm responsible for fundraising and setting the vision and strategy for that company. But I always say my hardest job is getting my 3 kids up in the morning and to school, which is especially hard when you have a 7:30 meeting, which is why I look very tired today. I do have some board governance. I sat for 4 years on the National Advisory Committee for the AmeriCorps NCCC. I've also sit on the CU Women's Issues Committee, and I am a board member of Prime Health Colorado. And just yesterday, I was invited to sit on the Colorado Department of Human Services User Design Work Group, which I still have to read, it's so new, to determine how the funding allocation around mental behavioral health care coordination is going to happen in the state. So really an honor to be on that. I'm doing this work because I care deeply about our kids. I'm concerned very much right now about our mental behavioral health needs of our kids. Our school to career pipeline is an area where I think I can bring particular expertise and thoughtfulness. And finally, we are in a critical shortage of teachers and staff right now. So thinking about recruitment and retention of that for our schools is something where I hope to work very hard for the district on. So thank you, and I look forward to your vote. Thank you.
If you'd like, you can just stay up stage. I think we're going to have a couple questions in just a moment, so it'll be easier for you just to stay up here. Oh, yeah, no problem. Grab some notes, whatever you need. In the interim, let's invite Jeffrey Wilhite up for opening remarks. 3 minutes on the opening remarks for Jeffrey.
My last name is Wilhite, it's a W, who knows, Varda, whatever. I really tried to talk Katie Winter into doing this for me. I mean, I talked to her yesterday by happenstance. I talked to her this morning. She just wouldn't do it. And she wouldn't also tell me. But she's always like that. But that's okay. You know, we've been doing this a long time. And I think everybody's a little, wanky in terms of what we're talking about. And you lose track and you just kind of don't know what you're saying anymore. Last night, I was sitting next to Ms. Varda, and she goes, "I'm just really tired." I said, "I got you." People come to me after these things and say, I thank you for telling me who you were. What are you going to do? So I'm going to say, who I am is on my website. My experience is on my website, Will Hite for Jeffco, students.com. What I'm going to do, though, is focus more on what we're going to do. What are the concerns? First concern is Jeffco has a giant budget, $1,400,000,000. I can't even say that number, and I can't certainly write it. It's important that we review the budget and see how it's being spent. I think that Superintendent Dorland is doing that right now. I think that will help with finding extra money. That seems to be the constant thing that comes up in everybody's talk, everybody's discussion. We don't have enough money for teachers, paras, bus drivers, so we have to find that. And the state's not going to give it to us. The most important thing is that Jeffco had been a very strong school district educationally. Strong. Right now, our elementary kids are not doing well. They don't test at grade level in 3rd grade, in 5th grade, 8th grade, so that turns out to be, science, math, and English. So you're going, okay, what are we doing? How did we lose the focus? The superintendent wants us to be a top 10% school district in the United States. Excellent idea, but how do we do that? Here's one of the examples that really makes me crazy, is that 20% of the graduating students from Jeffco, 30 seconds. Well, this happened to me last night too. I started babbling, and then the next thing I know, I ran out of time. Anyway, we can do this. You can ask me more questions. I mean, I hope that you understand, that the focus should be on what we're going to do versus who we are. And do I get a 15-second one too?
No, just stop.
Katie, thank you for helping. Thank you very much.
Right out of time. Right out of runway.
All right, we have a couple questions for each of you. 1 minute response to each question. We'll remain with the order that we kick things off with. So, Ms. Varda, the first question for you. Please describe what you have observed as the primary lessons learned related to public education during the COVID-19 pandemic.
There's a mic.
You're going to need another mic.
It's on the
There
chair.
it is. There it is. Or just scream real loud. It's on. It should be on.
Can you read the question one more time?
I'm happy to, by all means. Yeah, please describe what you observed as the primary lessons learned in public school and public education during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, none of us expected this to happen, and I watched the way we had to change and pivot in business, as a business owner in the university, as a member of that faculty, but nothing matched what we had to do in the public schools. It was pretty incredible the way that our district made our pivot to online learning. Our teachers and staff, children were all heroic in adapting to that. And I think what we learned is that we are able in Jefferson County to provide education through multiple mediums, multiple ways, and we have the resources and ability to do that as a county. We also had a lot of challenges. COVID demonstrated the inequities that we face in education and some of the ways that folks had access or not access to that education. Working families had to do a lot of work to get our kids educated. So as a community, I think we have incredible resiliency, and I think that's one of our greatest lessons.
Mr. Wilhite, same question. Describe what you have observed as the primary lessons learned as it relates to the public education spectrum during the COVID-19 pandemic.
You know, we were not ready for this. You know, we had no idea that this would happen. I think, though, that in terms of specifically the charter school that I was involved with at the time pivoted quite nicely. They were able to, it was a Waldorf school, so they have all sorts of things that they have to give the kids. So I remember, like, you know, special pencils and crayons and just that kind of stuff. And so when we had to go out away from being full-time in school to remote, I remember in a snowstorm that we were handing out goods, you know, to parents driving by in the cars, you know, rolling the windows down, giving it. So giving them the items for their kids. That was a wonderful experience. However, the experience for the teachers and the kids was not good. Nobody knew how to teach remotely. Nobody knew how to learn remotely. And I'm going to say that it had a really negative effect on the overall education at that time. Stop.
Keep the microphone handy, though. You'll get the first crack at this one.
Oh, okay.
The question is, how will you support the school district ensuring that talent can be recruited and retained?
That's a question everybody asks. I've got
Good.
that question 3 or 4 times.
And you should have this
twice.
one down.
It's really, it is a hard thing. I think, first of all, when you look at the district, it has to have an environment that people want to come to. Not only money. You know, money's important. Believe me, money's important, but they have to want to be here. I think for a long time, you know, the older teachers that have been here for, you know, 30 years, 20 years are very committed. The younger teachers don't quite understand what we have to offer. And so we really need to kind of make it very clear that this is a good place. However, it needs to be a good place. And when you have statistics like what we've been looking at in terms of educational accomplishments, people aren't sure, you know, if it's a good place. So anyway, you know, you have to have an environment. The daily process of coming to school and teaching and working has to be good. I saw that card coming.
It was coming. You're getting this.
That 1 minute
Thank
internal clock was going. Yeah, appreciate it. Ms. Varda, same question to you. Happy to repeat it. How will you support the school district in ensuring that talent can both be attracted and retained?
Well, right now we have a critical shortage in our teacher and staff around the district. It's a #1 concern, I think, for us. Obviously, we need to offer fair and competitive wages for people that make them want to come to the district, but culture and climate is incredibly important. I know in our Unified Improvement Plan at our school, my principal talks about this all of the time, and I think this is something we need to work on from the district level down to provide a place where people want to come and work. And we need to reduce some of our barriers to entry to come into these positions, the cost and barrier to that, and create a place where there are incentives for them to stay. I know as a business owner, these are things I think about all the time because bringing on new people has a new cost every time that happens. So retention is incredibly important. And I think that we can do this both at the local, the school level, but the district can help us do this. And as a school board member, someone who is looking at our budgets, I think that there's lots of resources we can pull in innovative ways to do this work. Thanks.
Great. Keep the microphone in your hand. We'll get you the first crack here, Ms. Varda, at the last question. In recent years, we've watched controversy grow in the education arena. How are you going to build consensus and ensure stakeholder alignment in your decision making?
I love this question. I mentioned I'm a network scientist, and for a living, I study how communities bring in collaboration and networks together to solve big, complex problems. I understand, as a network scientist, the value of diverse views. We can't have silos in this work, and so bringing together people who can really test our thinking around some of the ways that we think now is super important. And I think as a board member, we need to, and I will, welcome all kinds of voice and stakeholder engagement in that work. And so I'm a strong believer in collaboration. It's an absolute necessity, and bringing diverse voices to the table across all kinds of representation is a strategy that we need to be implementing in every single policy that we are considering. Thanks.
Mr. Wilhite, how will you build consensus and ensure stakeholder alignment in your decision making?
You know, currently the existing board is not a very transparent place. They've moved further and further away from being open with their decisions and how they make those decisions and, you know, how it works. And I think that people need to trust, you know, the board. They need to understand what you're doing. They need to understand why you're doing it, and they need to be have some access, you know, to the board. So I think that if you're trying to, you know, create that kind of an environment where people are committed to you and trust you, then we just have to change. That's not been the protocol in the last 5 years. In the last 2 years, it's been even worse. So we'll just change that, and I got it before she got the thing up again. Thank you very much.
Bonus points for beating the buzzer.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, fire round, up to 3-word answers. If you get into that fourth one, Cammie starts throwing things, so 3-word answers only here. Favorite subject in school, Jeffrey?
Well,
I don't remember that class.
yeah, I don't either. I used to like history a lot when I was in high school. Thanks.
So history it is. Danielle?
Math.
Math. Great. We need to get you a microphone. Okay. You guys will share? Okay.
Math.
Thank you. What did you want to be when you grew up?
A lawyer.
Okay.
Actor.
What is your pet peeve? Jeffrey?
When my stepdaughter doesn't put away the dishes.
It's funny.
Just gonna say it's not an answer, but I like not finishing.
Okay. Who's your role model? Start with you.
My mom.
Mom's a good one.
I have a mentor that.
That's 4, 5. 3 words.
I didn't like math.
I forgot that we were just.
3 words. Yeah.
My friend Sherm Franz.
Okay, great. And we'll give you the final crack at this. Favorite sweet treat? I mean, it's almost Halloween.
Chocolate.
Good.
Chocolate.
See, common ground and civility in our battle once again. Let's thank both of our candidates. We really do appreciate their candid answers and really putting yourselves out there running for office. Thank you so much. Now, if chocolate was on the ballot, right? All right, District 2, opening remarks. In this case, we have 3 candidates. We'll begin with David Johnson. David, you'll have 3 minutes, and the timekeeper is right in front of you here.
I need a mic and that camera turned off. I tell you what, I do a lot of public speaking, and I've spoken in front of thousands of people, and nothing has made me more nervous than those stairs. Seriously. And I think that I had a better story, but it was a long, annoying accident, so it won't entertain anybody, so I'll just move on. I started my teaching career in Chicago, and I moved to Colorado in 1993. I taught here for a number of years, and then I got my principal's certificate, and I started working with an alternative school for kids with behavior problems and substance abuse problems. And so for the last 22 years, I've been doing what now is called behavioral health. Substance abuse treatment, behavior modification, private schools, substance abuse treatment centers, and mental health institutions. Sorry, this is hard. I'm good. You'll remember me this way, right? I know. And now I lost my train of thought. I'm running for the board because I really have been invested in working with kids and families my whole life. Kids in crisis, families in crisis. I've served on the District Accountability Committee and the budget, and I was the budget chair for the last 3 years. So I worked with the district for a number of years, and I watched the inner workings of the district from that side of the fence, as a parent, as a teacher, as an administrator, and as a business owner. And really what I was looking really closely at was the 2 or 3 major challenges facing our district. Student health, not only their physical health with COVID, but their social and emotional health. I mean, I've been in mental health for 20 years, and I saw what COVID did to the kids when they were at home working remotely. And it really touched me. I have an 8th grade girl, And I would walk in her room, and the blinds would be closed. She was under her bed, working on her laptop, and I'd be like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, I'm in school." I'm like, "Oh, you're killing me." And so, not only that, that wasn't necessarily the point. The point was that what I saw was a great need for not only the community, but for schools to be a support system for our kids and our families. I also then was working on the budget subcommittee, and I saw, as it's been mentioned, this massive budget and constant conversations around teacher pay, no bus drivers, no food service, all these challenges. And so I sat with the CFO at the time, Kathleen Eskelson, and I sat with the cabinet, and we went line by line, right? I run a big company, hundreds of millions of dollars, and I see my payroll, and I see things, and so I pull out this document, and I said, "Can we explain this program? Can we talk about some of the challenges that we're faced in this district?" And I didn't get the answers that I thought somebody in the district should be able to provide. And so I think it's the role of a board of directors to be a support system. I've worked in Illinois, I've worked in Arizona, I've worked in New Mexico, I've worked in Colorado. And I think to support the superintendent in the district, you have to have a breadth of experience and to hold people accountable for performance, academic performance and financial performance. Thanks.
He's just going to hang out here, which is a good idea. You seem like a really fun-loving, free-spirited guy about your condition, and we appreciate that. I'm sure you've had to answer the question, are you running for office? You know. See, I just gave you that one. You know, at your disposal, just feel free. Tip your bartenders and waitresses. Next up is Paula Reed. Paula, you'll have 3 minutes as well, and then Cammie's right in front with your time indications.
First, I have to say, I heard Dave's story. It's pretty impressive, actually. So my name is Paula Reed, and I'm running in District 2. I'm a Jeffco woman. My roots run deep. In fact, I grew up in Arvada. So I graduated from Pomona, and while I was there, I fell in love with the Green Mountain guy. We raised 2 Green Mountain graduates, and I taught at Columbine High School for 30 years. So I retired in 2018, and that has given me a pretty deep perspective on our schools. While I was at Columbine, I taught forensics and debate, competitive public speaking. It tended to be your highly driven kids. I had a student go on to become a senior advisor to Barack Obama and Kamala Harris. And I also had sort of your garden variety, 9th and 10th graders in just general ed classes. I spent 20 of my 30 years teaching in a program called ACE, Alternative Cooperative Education. And it was for students identified as at risk for dropping out for reasons other than disability. So I have taught every kind of kid there is. And all of that was in one single neighborhood school. So I know that neighborhood schools can offer a lot of options. And having taught at-risk students, I can also tell you that there are students who have no choice but their neighborhood school. So to me, it's really important that all of those schools be really good schools. No one should ever have to choice out of their neighborhood school because it's not a good school. So that is something that I'm really passionate about. Another piece of teaching ACE was CTE, Career and Technical Education. I oversaw kids in on-the-job education classes, and I had a chance to participate in listening to advisory boards of business leaders and getting an idea of what it is that people want from our schools. So I think that experience was also super helpful. I was a dean of students, so I had an opportunity to look at things as an administrator. I was on a committee for a major overhaul of Columbine in 1995, so I've been in on a major capital improvement project. I served on the board of operations at the Jefferson County Education Association and the board of trustees at my church, so I have governance experience as well. The thing that I think is going to make me a really good board member is that classroom experience, 3 decades of it. I know how decisions that get made in the boardroom impact the classroom and student learning. And that will be first and foremost for me in every decision that I make as a board member. Thank you so much.
Our final candidate to open up, Teresa Shelton, is joining us now, and then we'll do Q&A with 1-minute responses to each question.
Good morning, everybody. It's so good to see you all. I'm Teresa. I am married, and we have 3 children. But before I tell you anything more, there's one thing I want you to remember about me. I love radishes. You see, I grew up on a vegetable farm not far from here, a place called Welby, Colorado. And my 12 siblings and I bunched radishes every day from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So you can guess why I love school, right? It got me right out of that radish field. I truly value public education. My family, we value hard work. I went to school at Colorado State University. I traded the radish fields. My brother still runs the farm, but I went on to school. I became an accountant. I started my career working for one of the big 8 public accounting firms. I did that for about 9 years. And then I went on to work for a restaurant company. And Rock Bottom Restaurants, Old Chicago Restaurants, we grew the company. I think it had 12 restaurants when I started, 60 when I left. And then I went on to a private equity firm. I did that for about 16 years. $2 billion firm. I was in charge of finance and operations. So I've done a lot. I've done a lot professionally, but I've also done a lot personally. I told you I'm one of 13 children. Well, I have 3. Our oldest, though, is 23. He's a college graduate, Golden High School alum, just like my husband. But our youngest just started 6th grade. Big age gap. So what we have really seen, being in the district for as long as we have been in the district, is a drastic change. Our son had a fantastic education. He really did. And it's not that our girls are having a horrible one, it's just that it's way different. Academic achievement is just not where it used to be, and that's surprising. The homework assignments they come home with are just nowhere near as in-depth or as regular as our son. Not that you have to have homework to have good education, but our test scores are showing that we do have some issues. We have some real issues in student achievement. So I look at this and I say, hey, I have the skills. I'm a CPA, I've run businesses, I've had clients in the public accounting firm in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Through my work in the private equity firm, we supported 35 different companies. I've seen a lot of businesses. I think I can really add a lot of value to what we're trying to do here as a district. We have a lot of challenges on our plate right now. We have a lot of things that can really use some attention, and I would really look forward to serving our community, joining our existing board members, and supporting our staff and superintendent and everybody in the schools in trying to move this mission forward. So thank you all for being here.
So this is the 1-minute responses to each question. And we will start with Mr. Johnson. So David, what role do you believe career technical education, CTE, as you heard it referenced earlier, should play in Jeffco public schools?
I believe it should be a major role. I think that the role of a high school is to provide not only college readiness, but career readiness. I think one of the challenges that we're faced with as a country is we have a workforce problem. And part of that is based on our education system. I think that we gravitated towards college readiness with a huge push 20, 30 years ago to ensure that everybody went to college. You know, in Chicago, a trade was a big deal for me and my buddies. Like, that's what it was. And all those trade schools and vocational parts of our high schools was ripped out of those in the 90s. That does not exist anymore. So I believe that career readiness is just as important as college readiness.
Thank you. We'll give the same question to Ms. Reed. I heard you mention this during your opening remarks. I'm sure you have a good answer for this one as well. I'll ask the question again, though. What role do you believe CTE should play in Jeffco Public Schools?
Well, I think it's absolutely critical, for one thing, and I'm going to go back to the importance of neighborhood schools to me. We do need to make sure that we have shop classes available in school and that we have culinary programs available in schools and that kind of thing. I also have to tell you, having taught in ACE, I had students who did not test well and did not really understand the relevance of school, who were phenomenal on the job. Their employers loved them, and the kids loved the opportunity to show off. I have to tell you, when I had a kid that was learning how to be a crane operator, I think he just got the biggest kick out of awe on my face when I would go and visit him on the job and see what he was doing. That was what fed him, and that's what gave him a sense of value and worth. And it wasn't his math scores, and you know, I mean, he graduated, he did okay, but boy, a crane operator, I was pretty dang impressed.
Ms. Shelton, same question to you. What role do you believe CTE should play in Jeffco Public Schools?
A major role. I talked about the fact that I come from this very large family. We didn't all go to college. We weren't able to all go to college. Yet my high school in Welby, Colorado, we had wonderful vocational programs for our children. And I think it is something that we really need to work on here in the district. I love what Warren Tech is doing, but I think the enrollment in Warren Tech is 1,500 to 1,600 kids a year. And that's for juniors and seniors, they can apply, and we have 12,000 juniors and seniors. So we have to have much more within the actual schools so that we don't have to deal with the transportation issues, and we can encourage our children. We got to get rid of the stigma that you must go to college, because I think there is a lot to be had for going on to careers straight from high school, and you can always go to college later. I had 3 siblings all get their college degrees afterwards.
All right. We'll move on to the second question. Paula, you'll handle the first response here as we rotate through. In August, this audience heard from Superintendent Dorland that test scores have declined recently. I heard each of you mention this in your opening remarks. How would you address the decline in test scores?
Well, one of the things that we're really facing is a funding crisis, and this is impacting the quality of teachers that we can recruit, and it's affecting whether or not we can retain them. It's affecting whether or not we can even get the kids to school because of bus drivers and feed them once they're there. And I'm not willing to say the state's not going to give us more money. The state owes us money. The state owes Jefferson County almost $1 billion. So you know what? I'm not okay with this. And I think it's time for boards of education across the state to step up and say, you know what? This isn't going to work. We need something other than a BS factor, because that's not working for us. So I think that's a big piece. I think another big piece is we need to listen to educators as experts, and we need to respect their opinions. Very often decisions get made above teachers' heads that are actually impairing their ability to do their job well. In a lot of ways we get in their way. I think we need to get out of the way.
Now to you, Ms. Shelton, same question. In August, we heard from Superintendent Dorland, test scores are dropping. How would you address this?
So what's absolutely wonderful is that it's being acknowledged. Test scores didn't just drop last year, right? It wasn't a COVID thing. They've been dropping for a while. And I just love the fact that it's now being acknowledged, because what I've learned in business, if you don't acknowledge a problem, there's absolutely no way to ever fix it. If you don't measure it, you're not gonna know where you really have the problems. So what do we do about it? That's the really big burning question. I think right now, what Superintendent Dorland has talked about and what the board started to do in the spring was they were looking at reading curriculum. I'm passionate about literacy. This is where I served on our school accountability committee, and we had real issues in our school with literacy. So she's starting there, our district is starting there, and they're looking at a curriculum. I think it's this question of, is that where our challenge is? Is it the curriculum? We have a lot of different reading curriculums in all of our elementary schools. So we're trying to pilot one now to see if maybe that is the best one that they ought to be using. So there is something to be said for whether or not we have the right resource and whether or not we have the right training.
Mr. Johnson, same question to you. How are you going to address the decline in test scores?
First thing I like to do is look at the data. There are over 56 metrics that CMAS looks at, and all 56 of them are not down. So what was looked at in regards to that is continuing to raise the bar and have high expectations, and that's great. But we can't be reactionary. We can't just throw out all the curriculum and start something new. We can't do what we like to do in education is, you know what, that's not working, let's fix it. And they throw out everything and they start all over. They buy new books and they throw out all the other ones 3 years later. The reading curriculums, the math curriculums. We've gone through 2 different major math curriculums since I've been part of the DAC, which costs millions, tens of millions of dollars to make that change from a district-wide. So the first thing we have to do is really identify which test scores are down and then pinpoint those areas in regards to where we're going to put our resources and our support to the district to ensure those areas receive the most support.
And we'll move on to the final question. Ms. Shelton will have the first crack at this one. what do you perceive is the biggest challenge facing Jeffco Public Schools today?
I think it's a dual challenge, and that I know you said single, but I'm going to go with the dual. It is achievement. It is student achievement in light of the budget. $1.4 billion, 30% more than it was 6 years ago. The number of students, down 6,000. So from 86 to 80. So we have massive amounts of funds, we have fewer students, and the scores are not where they need to be. So we need to really figure out how all of you are going to have graduates that are career, military, or college ready, and we need to really do our job and focus on how to use the funds we have. We would all love to have more funds, but we really have to look at what we have and ensure that we've got the appropriate allocations between classrooms and administration.
Same question.
I think you're going to sense a theme. Funding is a big issue. And part of it is definitely how those funds are being spent and what those priorities are. The priorities need to be direct student contact. And then beyond that, we can figure out what else we need to do. But that's an important piece. And the other piece is generating more. I realize that we do have quite a bit of money, but if we want to be in one of those top performing districts, a lot of times those are districts with substantially more funding than we have. And so I think, yes, let's make sure that we're spending our funding well, and let's add to it because the Colorado Constitution says that we need to.
And Mr. Johnson, what is the biggest challenge facing Jeffco Public Schools today?
I would say that I believe that the social and emotional health of our young people is a major concern. 56% of American teens have no hope, per a USA Today study. Many of them don't necessarily see any future as far as where this country is going and where this state is going. Suicide is the #1 killer of American teens in the state of Colorado, and Colorado leads the nation in teen suicide. I understand, and I'm a financial guy, and I'm a budget guy, and we need the money to have the programs to do that. But if the kids are not healthy, emotionally healthy, and mentally stable, it doesn't matter whether we have new math books or great teachers. We need to make sure that our kids feel safe. And for that matter, our staff feels safe. Jefferson County School District is the #1 employer in Jefferson County. It's very important for us as a district to recognize those employees and support them with their emotional health as the largest employer in this county. And so I think that's the #1 concern of the district, and we have to make sure it's the #1 priority at every meeting.
All right, hold on to that, Mike. I'll come over and sit next to you. You and I can share, Ms. Shelton. All right, so Mr. Johnson, we're going into 3-word answers here. Favorite subject in school for you?
Football. Oh, I mean history.
Ms. Reed?
English.
Ms. Shelton?
Senior high, English.
Okay. What did you want to be when you grew up, Ms. Reed?
An actress.
Ms. Shelton?
MTV video dancer.
It's not too late. It's not too late. Mr. Johnson?
Football player, Shelton.
Mike Singletary?
Yeah, it was hard.
Yep. Yeah. All right, so what is your pet peeve? And we'll begin with Ms. Shelton.
Yeah, 3 words.
3.
Improperly organized dishwasher.
Yes.
You would have OCD at my house. Mr. Johnson.
Bad coffee.
Oh, well played. Ms. Reed?
Whining.
Yes. Okay, I think we can all agree you guys have nailed that answer. Role model, we'll start with you, Mr. Johnson, I believe.
Mom.
Good answer, always.
Annie Sullivan.
Annie Sullivan and Ms. Shelton?
Seriously, Mom.
Always the right answer. Favorite sweet treat, we'll start with you, Ms. Reed.
Chocolate.
Favorite sweet treat, Ms. Shelton?
Mint, chocolate chip, ice cream.
We'll allow it. Mr. Johnson.
Chocolate-covered almonds.
Chocolate-covered almonds. You all are doing great getting out into the community. Thank you so much for running. Thank you for sharing your perspective this morning. We'll move on to District 3, and as these folks make their way back to the seat, I think we all have this conversation about schools and how we can fix it. A lot of us are parents. The one thing that candidates can't discuss and can't really talk about is parenting, right? And we talk about that a lot, and how much we see parents show up at parent-teacher conferences, and I always like to talk to my brother who's a teacher about that and what kind of barometer that is in a school district. So we'll talk about opening remarks here for District 3. Kathy Mix is our first, and then Mary Parker, you're on deck. So Kathy.
Hello, thank you. I'm Kathy Mix. I'm actually running in District 5, but that's okay. I'm running because I care very deeply about our kids and their futures. I've been associated with and serving Jeffco schools for 30 years. Jeffco is facing significant challenges, and we need strong and experienced leadership on the board to get our schools back on top. I have the skills, the right kind of experience, and the passion required to meet the needs and get Jeffco schools on top. I grew up in Jefferson County, and I'm a Lakewood High School graduate. My husband is a Wheat Ridge High School graduate, and our 3 children also graduated from Jeffco schools. We all had outstanding educations and experiences that prepared us for success. I have an engineering degree from the Colorado School of Mines, where I played basketball and volleyball. After Mines, I worked at Viacol as an engineering manager and as the lead solid propellant engineer for the Space Shuttle program. During my time at Viacol, I chaired the Expanding Your Horizons program conference for elementary and middle school girls to get them interested in math and science. This program served about 400 students annually. I currently lead an innovation and commercialization team for Johns Manville's building insulation business. And I serve on leadership positions for 3 very large industry trade associations. These are all billion-dollar organizations. I have the experience setting and achieving high goals, managing big budgets, and creating very big success. I was actively involved in the schools when my kids were enrolled for 17 years, and I coached volleyball at Columbine High School for 10 years. My family benefited immensely from a great Jeffco educations. Unfortunately, as we have heard, Jeffco schools have been declining for the past 6 years, and I'm worried about our kids and their futures. In 2019, before COVID, 54% of 3rd graders were not reading at grade level. We need to make sure that we are providing our kids with the education and the experiences needed so that they can be successful in the 21st century, which is why I'm running for the board. Jeffco has had a reputation for greatness, and we can achieve that again with the right type of leadership. My priorities are improving academic achievement and offering robust career and technical education programs, using our funds effectively and efficiently to improve outcomes for our students and provide competitive salaries for our teachers and employers, safeguarding the whole child, mental, emotional, social, and physical, and supporting parents and teachers' individual choice. I want to help Jeffco students. We have one chance to get it right for them during their most formative years. This is a critical election. We can't keep doing things the same way and expect different results. I'm Kathy Mix. I'm running for District 5. Thank you.
We'll blame that on my handwriting, if you've ever seen my handwriting. Mary Parker is also running in District 5. We'll welcome her to the stage as well.
Thank you. In September, I was the one on crutches, so I'm happy to at least be able to hobble up the stairs. My name is Mary Parker, and I'm running for District 5, which is South Jefferson County. I have 4 daughters, 5 granddaughters, and 1 grandson. 2 of my granddaughters have graduated from Jeffco schools, 2 are currently attending them. And I have been volunteering and attending events in Jeffco schools for 20 years now. I've been excited to see the changes, the innovations, the extra opportunities that Jeffco has provided for our students. Professionally, I was a systems engineer for Hewlett-Packard for 20 years. I taught supported systems and financial applications, and I also taught decision-making and problem-solving courses. And I think those are two skills that will be very helpful on the Board of Education. Currently, my husband and I own a human resources consulting firm, and we specialize in compensation and recruiting. And as has been mentioned this year, we have a critical shortage of school bus drivers, of substitute teachers, of food workers, and of food. So I hope to bring my skills in compensation and recruiting to the board as well. I also taught parenting classes for 20 years. I taught helicopter parents and soccer moms and parents who were court-ordered to be in the classes. We covered topics like bullying and suicide prevention, and I think those are two things that are very important that we need to address these days in our schools. I also, for the last 14 years, have been a court-appointed special advocate working with neglected and abused children in Jefferson County. One case that I worked on involved two sisters who were truants, and I actually saw them handcuffed and taken through the same doors that convicted criminals go through. I saw the school-to-prison pipeline right here in Jefferson County. From my CASA training, I learned that the #1 predictor of whether or not a child will graduate from high school is the number of unexcused absences they have in 3rd grade. We have to catch the kids early. Another case that I worked on with CASA were two kiddos that were displaced so many times that they actually went to 3 different schools in the first 6 weeks of one school year. Our schools have to be prepared to take in students, traumatized students with no notice whatsoever, and not only provide a seat in the classroom, but they also have to have support for their physical and emotional and mental needs. We are asking an awful lot of our schools these days. Our students and our school staff faced enormous challenges last year. I want to be part of helping them get back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Ms. Mix, we'll begin with you. 1-minute response to each question. Consistently, the Arvada Chamber hears from business leaders that there is a substantial skill and demand gap that exists in our current talent pipeline. How will you ensure that we're working toward better outcomes to prepare our students for the workforce?
Well, first of all, I agree that there is a gap in the talent pipeline, which makes it a very good opportunity for us to grow. Jeffco needs to offer robust career and technical education programs and certifications that are valued by employers for jobs that are in high demand. We need to work with industry, with all of the folks in this room, to make sure that we're giving our students the skills that they need to go right into the workforce for employers who have positions that are available. Employers want the best and brightest, so we also need to make sure that our kids have strong foundational skills. They need to know how to read, they need to know how to do math, and they need to have good critical thinking skills. Thank you.
Ms. Parker, same question to you. How will you ensure that we're working toward better outcomes to prepare our students for the workforce?
This is something that I look forward to working on the school board, because the business that my husband and I own, the HR consulting business, we have gone into colleges and we've talked to the students there who haven't chosen a major yet, and we can give them information on what careers are out there, what they pay, what the growth path is. I'd love to bring that down to the high school level so that the kids there will know what's available, and I'd love to work with chambers so that we know where the gaps are, what the work needs are in this community, and we can bring that to the schools, and hopefully we can get a lot of mentorships going, apprenticeships. I think we've got a lot of opportunity there.
Ms. Parker, the question here will be for you first. There are growing concerns around mental health for students. We've heard that reference this morning as well. So what steps would you take to ensure that these growing needs are being met?
First of all, I want to make sure that we have SELs, the social emotional leaders, in all schools in Jefferson County now. Also, I think that we can support those staff and our counselors and our social workers and our psychologists by taking advantage of our support staff. I've spoken to some of the cafeteria workers, and they say they would love to be trained in mental health first aid, and that they are often the first people that see a problem with students, that they have face-to-face contact with them, and they may be the first ones who can identify a need there. And additionally, I think we should be adding in some mental health checkups with regular physical checkups that our kids go through every year.
Same question to you, Ms. Mix. What will you do, or what steps should we take to ensure that these growing needs are being met?
Yes, the COVID has impacted our students like never before. In this spring, Children's Hospital declared a state of mental emergency for our young children. Fortunately, we've also received unprecedented federal and state funding. We need to make sure that those funds are used effectively and efficiently to help all of our students. So getting them at the front line where there is an emergency. And this would be a reactively working on it. There's also some things that we can do to be proactive and prevent the mental health emergencies, and that would be giving students opportunities to be happy and participate in extracurricular activities, which we know is very good for their mental health. Kids need something to look forward to, socially and emotionally, coming to school and participating in all of those activities with their friends. We need to make sure that those aren't being threatened by new mandates that are happening in our schools.
Ms. Mix, we'll keep the microphone in your hand for the final long-form answer. Please explain to the audience your ideal view of how charter schools will work within our education system.
Today, more than ever, parents need choices to make sure that their kids have the best opportunities for success. Jeffco has over 150 schools. Students right now, 40% of them are attending choice schools, so schools that are not necessarily their neighborhood. Those would be charter schools, option schools, and schools that are not in their neighborhood. Right now, about 11% of our students attend charter schools, and we were just at a charter school a couple of weeks ago. They had 700 attendees and an 1,100 student wait list. So we know those schools are offering something that parents need, so we need to make sure that we support our public charter schools.
Ms. Parker, same question to you. Explain to the audience your ideal view of how charter schools will work within the education system.
My ideal view focuses on schools like our Rocky Mountain Deaf School. That is obviously a special need school. Those deaf students could not get the same education if they were integrated with our regular public schools. So my ideal view of charter schools is finding a very special curriculum, something that is not offered in our public schools, and encouraging that kind of growth.
All right, we're going to go fire round here, ladies, and since the microphone's in your hand, Ms. Parker, we'll start with you. Your favorite subject in school?
French.
Ms. Mix?
Art.
Okay, keep the microphone. What did you want to be when you grew up?
A doctor.
And Ms. Parker?
A CIA agent.
What is your pet peeve, Ms. Parker?
Yes or no questions.
Pet peeve, Ms. Mix?
I'm going with the dishwasher, improper loading.
And who is your role model?
My parents.
Good dishwashers? Your role model?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Great. Keep the microphone handy for your favorite sweet treat.
Dark chocolate.
Okay.
Caramel popcorn.
Perfect time of year for that as well. All right. Let's give these two candidates for District 5 a round of applause.
Thank you.
Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us today, learning more about the 2021 ballot. And we want to thank all of our presenters as well. We recognize that there's a lot of time and energy that each of you put into these campaigns, and of course preparing for today. We're grateful for all of that. We hope you feel equipped to complete your ballot this weekend. Isn't it a wonderful place to live where you can have a cup of coffee on a Saturday morning, fire up your Google machine, look at everyone's website, find out a little bit more about some of these issues and the candidates? It is a great place to live. This is a great community, and you all have some great candidates to consider. As always, it has been a pleasure to join you this morning. I'm going to turn things back over now to Cammie, who will close out this morning's event. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you as always, Jim. You do an awesome job helping keep these conversations light and fun. We appreciate you very much. We also appreciate all of you candidates and speakers. We do have some cookies from La Patisserie Française for you to take home with you as a small token of appreciation for your efforts today. I want to take a quick moment. I know we had a couple candidates that have joined us, and I know we're way over on time, and I apologize, that is not our norm, but this was a lot of information. So if you are a candidate who has not already spoken today, and if you just want to pop up, we'll give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Thank you.
I'm Susie Shuckman. I'm running for Arvada City Council District 3.
Okay, very good. A couple chamber updates for you up on the screen here in just a second. We want to congratulate and thank all of our candidates and elected officials who joined us for our inaugural elected official and candidate business boot camp. They did some tours and heard about key business issues. We're grateful for their participation. There's a blog on our website that we'd encourage you to check out. And then I'd invite you to join us at our business summit coming up on November 10th. We're going to focus on resilience and making sure we are the safest community in all of Colorado. We will be accepting resilience awards for that, and so we'd encourage you to think about if your business should receive one of those. Last update, if you're on our Advocacy CAPS Council, if you want to join us in this corner, we're going to do a quick meeting after this to talk about ballot issues. Everybody else, thank you so much. Have a great day. We'll see you next month for our Mayor's Roundtable.